to Mariota in the first 5 rounds. Just letting you know. I'll get Rivers in the 9th round again.
I'm not telling you anything.
Cars and they all black, got 4 bras and they all that. We call that ballin'. Doing this is my calling. Flow is so appalling.
What's up? I'm Sal.
I'm RJ. This is Dos
And Tres. So this week, again, we're continuing our series into the biggest training camp questions. This week, we're going to look at the NFC North.
Fuck the Packers.
So we're going to go worst to first. So we're going to start off with the Bears. The obvious question with them on offense would be quarterback, but we're just going to skim over that. That's been talked about a lot, and it seems like, you know, every division we're going to be talking about someone's quarterback issue. So we're going to switch to another player, and that's Kevin White, who they drafted in the first round a couple years ago. He's dealt with injuries with his first and second seasons. Whenever he's on the field, he shows the speed that he had, but he doesn't really show the refinement in his route tree that you're expecting out of a first round guy. And then adding on top of that the unsteadiness at quarterback, I'm just interested to see how he's going to develop and if he's going to actually pan out to be worth that first round pick. Some would say that's already passed, but with Alshon gone and them actually letting go of Eddie Royal, which I thought it was interesting because he did pretty good last year for them, it's going to be all on his shoulders now.
And to touch on the quarterback position just a little bit with that, if one of them is going to be pretty good this year, have a decent year, Kevin White needs to be a big part of that.
So for the Bears defense and their secondary, I mean, that's the big question for them. Kyle Fuller was supposed to be a cornerstone cornerback for them, but then he was injured a lot of last year, so he really lost a year. And then they let go of Tracy Porter, who was their other side cornerback. And yeah, he was getting up there in age, but he did his job pretty well. He had that really big Thanksgiving game against the Packers. That was really standout performance. But other than that, I mean, there's not really much back there. I mean, as far as corner goes, they have decent safety work. I mean, they have Adrian Amos. That he's a really good, hard-hitting safety. But at the cornerback positions, it's really unsettled.
Yeah, and as far as their front seven goes, I mean, they had a pretty good front seven this past year. I don't really think there's not really questions to be really asked there. Just play good again this year.
Next is the Vikings. So another quarterback thing. Definitely from their offense, for me, their question is Teddy Bridgewater going to come back anytime this year? I know that they spent that first round pick on Sam Bradford, and, you know, he played okay as far as, you know, system quarterbacking last year, but I don't think he's, you know, the guy of the future. Teddy B showed some really good things when he was on the field, and I really liked him as a player. So I'm hoping for the best for him, and I think he's really the better guy to lead this Vikings offense into the future.
Teddy was a real accurate passer when he was healthy. You saw a lot of that during, if you just go back and put on the film, he made some really good passes and showed a lot of promise coming in, even though you can say he was kind of helped with AP and stuff like that. To jump real quick, the really only guy that they have that can really separate is Diggs. He's such a small guy, and sometimes they get impressed or whatever just because he's really the only guy out there that can get beat. And when you have a lackluster offensive line like that, you need somebody else to step up, and that guy is Laquan Treadwell. And he really didn't do anything last year for a rookie. I don't know if that had to do with them not wanting him to bring him along or whatever. I don't think so, considering you needed as much help as you could get last year. Like I said, I don't know what happened with Treadwell last year, but he needs to show what he showed at Ole Miss coming out.
They have a lot more questions on offense versus their defense. Like you said, Treadwell, I was going to bring him up too. I mean, that guy jumps off. I mean, you spent first round pick on him. I don't know why he didn't see the playing field more. I know that they went through a lot of changes as far as offensive coordinator goes, which was really unexpected. Norv Turner just like disappearing all of a sudden. And then going back to Latavius versus Dalvin Cook, you know, in hindsight, it looks like Latavius was a waste of, you know, cap space just because you got Cook. I mean, that he has all the potential in the world. He can definitely be your lead back for the next 5 years at least. Now it's going to be interesting to see how they play that with Latavius and Cook, because I think Latavius left Oakland because he really wanted to be that lead back because they were going through a little committee there with Rashard and him, and now he's coming to the Vikings and they just took one of the best running backs in the draft, and now you have him. So,
but you can't blame him when Cook was there at that spot.
Yeah,
I mean, take him.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep Latavius happy. Yeah, like we said, I mean, they have a lot of questions on offense, but that defense, not many questions. They're pretty locked down. So the first thing that I thought about was injury, and with injury, the first guy that comes up is Sharif Floyd, first round pick in 2013. Great defensive tackle. Whenever he was on the field, he was one of the best, but now it's looking like he might have a career-ending injury, and that's just really unfortunate because he could really solidify that line for them along with Linval Joseph. I mean, those two guys together, I would say those are could be the two best defensive tackles, you know, run stopping wise in the league together. Two guys guys who could be career threatening with Teddy B and him. I hope they see the field again because they have a lot of promise.
Yeah, you really don't have any questions on defense. With Eric Hendricks, Griffin, Barr, Xavier, Harrison Smith, I guess the only question that you could come up with is that Donald, Zach Martin, Odell Beckham, and then Anthony Barr, those are all premier guys that are coming up, fixing to get paid really good money. And you just paid Harrison Smith a lot of money. You're going to have to pay Xavier Rhodes a lot of money. And you're going to have to pay Anthony Barr a lot of money. So, if you really want to have a question for the defensive side of the ball, despite their eliteness, that's one of them, is just what are they going to pay Anthony Barr, and what's that going to be like when it comes to that time?
And with all those contracts coming up on the defense, that just further hinders the offense.
That just leads back to you have to draft well. We'll see how their rookie class turns out. So the next team up is the Lions. As far as that goes, they really only have one position that's really a question mark, and he'll get into that. But they're all in on Stafford. They got him help. He had a great year this past year. Golden Tate is a guy that they need to hopefully keep around because he was one of the really reliant, like as you can say, with Cole Beasley was with Dak, that he just showed out. And I remember that touchdown that he caught, the game-winning touchdown he caught against the Vikings in overtime, and that was amazing. It just leads to Stafford's your guy, and they got him help in the draft, and they got him help in the offseason with making some free agent moves on the offensive line, so they're all in on him. And they just traded for giving him a second chance. The Rams, Greg Robinson, the first round pick. So yeah.
Before I get into the running backs, one interesting thing I want to say about their offense from last year is that in the beginning, Marvin Jones was on a high and Tate was on a low. And then Tate was on a high and Jones was on a low. I'd like to see them both even out because that could just make the offense even more deadly. But the running back, that's for sure the biggest question mark. Amir Abdullah, he's not a lead every down back, and he's proved that with his injuries. And then you have Theo Riddick, not a lead back, not an every down back.
Scat.
Yeah, him and Amir kind of do the same things. And then you have Zach Zenner, who he showed, flashes. Against the Cowboys, they made him look like freaking Barry Sanders in the first half, but other than that, he really didn't do much. He's more of a power back, so that's a really big question for them. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't draft, or try and attempt to draft a really good running back. Instead, they went to the defensive side of the ball and they took Gerard Davis, which leads to their defense. They couldn't really stop the run last year. I remember whenever they played the Giants, that was a big game for them. They would have had a better seed in the playoffs if they had beat them, but they made their rookie running back Paul Perkins look like a freaking Pro Bowler. That's why they drafted Davis. They really need to improve at the linebacker position. DeAndre Levy is gone. I would have liked to see him maybe stay there maybe one more year, try and give him another chance because he was a great linebacker in his prime. They have Tahir Whitehead there as well. Hopefully the pairing of him and Davis will equal a better run-stopping defense. So next is the Packers, and kind of opposite to what the Lions are doing, boosting up their offensive line as Stafford goes into his prime. The Packers did kind of the opposite, and they lost. Last year they lost Josh Sitton, and this year they lost TJ Lang, two of the best at the position. And I think as Rodgers gets older and more into his prime, shouldn't the offensive line be improving rather than regressing? We'll see what happens, because last year they didn't have their best year. They were one of the top units the year before last. Losing those two guys over 2 years, I think they're going to take a big regression. And then on top of that, you're going to be relying on a wide receiver turned running back to run behind that line. The results from last year I don't think will be repeated as far as that goes.
Yeah, every team in this division, the Vikings getting cooked, the one most lackluster one left is the Packers because they have a wide receiver turned running back now and they lost their two offensive linemen.
So the obvious question for the Packers on their defense would be their secondary. They drafted Kevin King, who was a pretty good quarterback, really good value, but they're really definitely not set there. Like we said before, they got a lot of safeties playing quarter. But the next question for me is really their pass rush. They re-signed Nick Perry, but I think that's not enough. They lost Julius Peppers, who was on the back end of his career and was really, I think, their primary pass rusher, even though Clay Matthews was on the roster. Clay Matthews regressed, in my eyes, last year. So I don't really know where the pass rush is going to come from. Really, they only have those two guys. They have LaTroy Guion and Mike Daniels, but those guys are really just run stoppers. Are Clay Matthews and Nick Perry going to be able to really get after the quarterback and help out that secondary? That team is really one-sided. Super offense. You got A-Rod. That dude is one of the greats. But they really need a defense to back them up. That's how they won the Super Bowl. I mean, that's really how any team is going to win the Super Bowl. You need both halves.
You need team play, and sure, you can throw it around a lot with A-Rod the whole entire day, but like as you get further on into the season, and if you want to make a run deep like it was shown last year, you just can't do that. Like you saw that against Atlanta. But Kevin King is going to start right away. He has to because of the way their defense is right now, and they moved it back in the second round, and you know what? They still got their guy in King. I'm not too sure how Matthews is if he's gonna stay the same, whatever. Maybe he's gonna take some more PhD. I mean, some more PEDs. If he's gonna take some more PEDs, there you go. But yeah, you can cut that out. But that's pretty much all I gotta say.
All right. So that does it for the NFC North, looking at their questions going into training camp. If you like this video and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe at Dolson Tres and hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you want to keep up with any video that we post.
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to everything, latest news, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Dolson Threads YT. We'll see y'all next week. Peace, YouTube.
Okay, it's rap pack to my pulse flat. We keep it real, no false rap. I got 4 cars and they all black. Got 4 bras and they all that. We call that ballin'. Doing this is my calling. Flow is so appalling. My phone off and she calling. I'm like, yeah, what it do? Penthouse, man, what a view. Fall back cause I'm coming through with my whole team. They coming too, that's real.